Top 10 Scary Outer Space Incidents. We all have grown up while wanting to visit the moon someday. But what if we tell you that, fortunately, we live on the safest planet, as the moon is not so romantic when you visit it. Rather, the incidents seen by those who visited the moon or through NASA say the moon is a dangerous endeavor, and major tragedies aside, there have been several smaller, terrifying, grotesque, and absurd episodes that come out of it. But before continuing further, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified on every update from us. Now, let us take a look at the top 10 horrifying space incidents witnessed by our heroes who stepped there. Number 10, Ghost Hand of God. This hand, when appeared, shook the whole team of NASA. They nicknamed it Ghost Hand of God, and later after research got to know that this object is called a pulsar wind nebula. It's powered by the leftover dense core of a star that blew up in a supernova explosion. So, the stellar corpse rapidly spins around 7 times per second, firing out a particle winding into the material around it, which was ejected in the star's explosion. These particles are interacting with magnetic fields around the material, causing it to glow with X-rays. The result is a cloud that looked like an open hand. Later, the research told us that the hand is a cloud of material ejected from a star that exploded. The hand shrinks in the new star image, looking more like a fist, as indicated by the blue color. The northern region, where the fingers are located, shrinks more than the southern part, where a jet lies, implying that the two areas are physically different. Number 9. Space corpses in the sky. Space exploration research has claimed several animal lives, and while the idea of sacrificing monkeys and dogs on the altar of science is rather disheartening, the notion that there are dead simian and canine space explorers in orbit just adds to the creepiness. Several early space missions involved re-entry procedures, but not every spacesuit was recovered. This leads many to theorize that perhaps dozens of mummified animals are still making the orbital rounds up there. Think about that the next time you wish upon a shooting star. Number 8. The crew landed nearly 300 miles off course. So-Yeon Yi, the first Korean in space, was celebrating a successful and productive visit to the ISS as she boarded a Russian Soyuz spacecraft to return home to Earth. But suddenly, everything went wrong. The crew landed 300 miles off the course. There were some problems with the detachment of the Soyuz. The onboard computers sensed this and switched to a ballistic re-entry. Normally there are 2 or 3 recovery helicopters, but that day no one was there. They struggled hard to get out of the capsule. The crew had to crawl out of the craft on their own. Finally, they were able to get out of the capsule and lie on the grass. It was then that they realized they didn't land on their territory. Caused some shocked and terrified Kazakhstani nomadic herders came across. They had no idea about the space program. They had no idea about astronauts, and they had really big, huge eyes, Seon said. They hardly realized we were humans, not an alien, and they helped us. The shepherds helped get one of the crew members out, but they had no cell phone. Eventually, the crew had to get back into the Soyuz and use a GPS and satellite phone to make contact with the Russian Space Agency. Resultantly, a helicopter arrived on the scene. So-Yeon said that the whole experience was a lot more terrifying for thousands of Koreans who were excitedly watching the first person from their country return from space. Number 7. Wolf Food from Heaven. The most unexpected horror story of all was when the astronaut thought he was about to be eaten alive by wolves. Yet, that's a fate that cosmonaut Alexei Leonov barely avoided in 1965. He performed the first spacewalk on his mission, but experienced both air leaks and material unexpected stiffening, the latter of which made cramming himself back into the capsule. He had to lower suit pressure and risk the bends scrambling back inside. Finally, Voskhod 2 went off course during re-entry, landed in the Ural Mountains, where Leonov and his commander were forced to wait for rescue amid the howls of hungry wolves. The wolves kept haunting them for hours until the team came and rescued them. Number 6. Apollo Toilet Horrors. Though it seems quite filthy to talk about this, on May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard wet his pants aboard Freedom 7, but Apollo bathroom facilities would get a lot worse before they got any better. I don't think I'm the only guy to find something fundamentally frightening about a urinal that consists only of a condom-like fitting, a valve, and the empty void of outer space, Shepard said. And if that wasn't bad enough, space writer Andrew Scheiken's description of going number 2 in orbit is even worse. He writes about a special plastic bag that resembles a top hat with an adhesive coating on the brim. Then the whole spectacle gets even worse when you have to knead germicide into the contents. According to Chaikin, one Apollo 7 astronaut shared this bit of advice on the whole ghastly endeavor. Get naked, allow an hour, have plenty of tissues handy. Number 5. Decompression blues. Decompression is a nasty business, exactly as shown in the movies Firefly and Outland. All 3 crew members on Soyuz 11 died when decompressurized during re-entry, but in 1965 a technician at Johnson Space Center in Houston lived to tell about the experience. While inside a vacuum chamber, the tech accidentally depressurized his spacesuit, his last memory before losing consciousness. The sensation of the moisture on his tongue beginning to boil, according to Scientific American. The experts don't all agree on the full symptoms of rapid decompression, but among the possibilities is swollen flesh, vaporizing blood, exploding eyeballs, and ruptured lungs. And that's how the Soyuz 11 crew members died. Number 4. Space Beast. Microgravity sex is a topic of immense interest in teenage fanboys and scientists alike. Both the United States and the former Soviet Union explored this topic from a space medicine standpoint, but it took a former Beastmaster actress to take on Newton's laws of motion and design special garments for the act. Vanna Bonta's 2 suit, according to Wired, is a pair of twin jumpsuits that open in the front and fasten to each other with Velcro strips and zippers. Then you can fasten the whole 2-person sex pod to a stable object. I'm sure it never sounds creepier than that. Number 3. Toxic ammonia. Bob Kerbeam was no stranger to spacewalking when he was installing upgrades to the International Space Station. Still, he wasn't expecting a cooling line to break and spew toxic ammonia all over his suit. The fact is, an astronaut better be damn sure they are not bringing anything toxic back into the air with them. First, Kerbeam had to stop the leak. Then he had to figure out how he was going to get back into the space shuttle without bringing in the volatile ammonia contaminating his spacesuit. Kerbeam handled the leak with no problems, as he baked himself in sunlight for an extra 30 minutes, arguably one of the most surreal and terrifying sunbathing methods a human can experience. Later, a fellow astronaut brushed off the suit and equipment to be doubly sure. They partially vented the shuttle airlock. Being careful, the shuttle crew all wore oxygen masks inside until they were positive nothing had made its way in. Number 2. Weird music. If you think entertainment is not possible at the moon, you are wrong. Moon welcomes you with the music itself. In 1969, 3 Apollo 10 astronauts were orbiting the moon, 2 in a lunar module just miles above the surface and 1 in the command module higher up, when they heard something unusual. Their conversation, as perceived in NASA's archives, went like this. "That music even sounds outer spacey, doesn't it? That whistling sound?" said Eugene Cernan, the lunar module pilot. So the inner story is, the music was weird. Well, definitely the composers would be different from Earth, and there was a whistling sound too. Although the Apollo 10 astronauts never talked about what they heard publicly when they came back to Earth, but the mysterious music was found in the show called NASA's Unexplained Files. Number 1. The worst fire ever sustained by an orbiting spacecraft. Jerry Linenger was in the middle of an extended stay on the Mir space station when a catastrophic fire threatened. Unfortunately, in place of 3 astronauts, there were 6 astronauts on board, so the amount of oxygen produced by the regular tanks was sometimes not sufficient. The crew needed to open a supplemental tank. Things went from jovial to terrible in a split second, when the tank of concentrated oxygen-based chemicals caught fire and turned into an unstoppable blowtorch. This was pretty much a worst-case scenario for the astronauts and cosmonauts on Mir. The fire blazed for 14 minutes, as Linenger and his crew made sure that secondary fires didn't catch by dousing things in its path with fire extinguishers. The flame ate up the chemical, melted the canister, melted insulation around that area. Linenger said, "It was a hot, hot fire burning out of control." As 3 astronauts were fighting the blaze, the other 3 crew members were preparing for an emergency escape. But the problem was only one ship was able to escape when they had the space of 3 members only. That would have been a tough decision, Linenger said with striking nonchalance. Who goes and who stays? Luckily for the crew, that tough decision never had to be made. We were able to finally keep it from spreading, and then we faced the problem of trying to deal with the smoke and trying to breathe in a contaminated atmosphere. The team assessed the damage and wore oxygen masks until they were sure the environment risks were gone. After hearing all these incidents, I'm glad I've never thought of leaving my planet. Do tell us what is your opinion about this in the comment section below. Do hit the like button if you did learn something from this video. Make sure to share it to your friends so they also learn if it's wise to dream of going to space.